The assassination of Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1986 still hangs in the air as a blot on the record of Europe and Scandinavia. But we start this week with the death of the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1986. And I'm joined on the line by Ole Dammegård, who's written a book, Coup d'etat in slow motion on the killing. Hello, Ole. Welcome to the Politics Show. Tell us what first got you interested in the death of the Swedish Prime Minister back in 1986?
Well, it actually started some years before. Around 84, I got very, very interested in the JFK assassination and almost obsessed it. I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours reading and studying everything I could find about that assassination. And then that made me very interested as well in the Robert Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, and Malcolm X, and so on. And it came to a point where I started to see that it was almost like these assassinations were being carried out by almost following like a template, like a bullet point list. Not the exact way it was carried out on a street level, how the actual killing was done, but how the whole cover-up, how the setup with a patsy, how the setup with an investigation that was connected to the assassination itself, and then followed up by commissions that just were there to cover up the tracks. Then, while I was doing all of these things, I was still a journalist at that time. The Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme, was gunned down in the streets of Sweden. And at that time, I thought I lived in a free democracy, the perfect country, with the police I could trust, with no corruption and so on. But after like 6 months or something like that, I started seeing the exact same template showing in Sweden as well, which was absolutely mind-blowing.
Okay, so, one of the things we're getting used to is we have a massive hit, don't we, on the press, on the mainstream media, as soon as one of these events occur, and then the interest sort of dies away. The mainstream media loses interest. There's no real investigative documentaries done into what really happened. So tell us a bit about Olof Palme and his death, and what you've discovered since, because I noticed you've written this book about it, which is really asking the question, was this a slow-motion coup d'etat?
I truly believe it was. I mean, the official story to this very day is that it was carried out by a lone crazy guy, a drunkard that by mistake shot him thinking that he was his drug dealer. That is more or less the official story. They had a patsy, a man by the name of Christer Pettersson, who was sentenced for the crime and put to jail, but they later released, and then later dead in very mysterious circumstances as well. But once you start looking into the real truth, I mean, if you go into this crime with an open mind and you start following the different tracks, oh my God, it is incredible on such high level the power structure behind this assassination is. Over the years, I spent almost 30 years looking into this and many other major assassinations and force-like operations and so on. And I actually managed to make direct connections between the hits in Dealey Plaza when JFK was taken out and Olof Palme as well 23 years later.
Okay, so what have you actually discovered? What have you actually discovered, evidence, hard evidence, since the, obviously this is a long time ago, but what would you say, because obviously that doesn't fit with the official story, and who you think actually carried it out and why?
Well, I've written a book. It's almost 1,100 pages. It's with all the names, photos, documents, letters from the killers, the hit team, everything. And what I managed to do is track down, I would say more or less everyone who was involved in it. And it was a combination. The order of the assassination came from a very high level. I mean, we're talking like the global military-industrial complex with connection to NATO, the Iran-Contra scandal, the same people that are now behind what is called the New World Order. And the hit itself was carried out by an international hit team that was flown in, and people in this hit team were they were taken from different countries, different groups, different backgrounds, and so on, so that it would be very, very difficult to find out the real truth and start following the evidence, because it was pointing all over the place. And then this group was then backed up on a local basis by right-wing police officers that was helping with everything when it came to logistics, everything from weapon, housing, food, maps, ammo, getaway cars, all of these things. And they were contracted from the Gladio network, the Stay Behind network in some of the NATO countries. So the hit team itself consisted of people that was connected to the South African boss, the secret police and boss. They were the ones. There was a colonel there by the name of Craig Williamson that was given the task to perform this assassination, and he gathered a group of assassins from. He had some of his own people from South Africa, one from Mozambique, one from Norway, two from Germany, one from Sweden, and one American guy, one Italian guy. So they were from all over the place, but flown in just a few weeks before the assassination, and then taken care of by right-wing Swedish police officers or policemen that helped in the assassination itself.
Okay, so what was the motive?
This is a very, very good question, and I must say the most difficult one to answer as well, because just like with JFK, there was so many different motives. There was not one single motive, but many, many different. And depending on who the people that were part of the conspiracy, of their interest, it was how shall I say? Well, I can name a few. One of the things was that he was seen as a major threat. He was just starting to open up for Russia, and he was planning a trip to Moscow just a month after his assassination. At the same time, he was also starting to behave very, very oddly. In the fall of 1985, 6 months before the assassination, he started doing very, very odd things. And before that, he was acting a lot together with the global elite itself. He was a Bilderberger himself. He was also a member of the Committee of 300. And he was deeply involved in some very big arms deals, international arms deals, some of them illegal. And just a few months before he died, he started stopping some of these arms transports. And also Oliver North, that was later very famous in the Iran-Contras, he came to Sweden to get Olof Palme to fake and forge some end certificates for some missiles, where suddenly Olof Palme, from before being quite loyal to the cause, suddenly he just said absolutely no way and sent Oliver North back to the States, which really, really made a lot of people very, very angry. And well, like I say, there were many, many different reasons for the assassination. Just like with JFK, a multitude of reasons that just came to a point where they said enough is enough, and the order was given.
Now, I notice also in the news, just literally this month, that the Swedish police are saying they're having another investigation into the conspiracy over Olof Palme. Swedish police have begun to reinvestigate the outlawed PKK group and South African intelligence agencies over the assassination of Social Democrat Prime Minister Olof Palme, who was shot dead in Stockholm whilst walking home from a cinema with his wife in 1986. So it's amazing that this just refuses to go away. Another police investigation. Do you think there's any chance that they're going to actually name the names and get to the proper suspects this time?
No, absolutely not. Because the investigation itself is part of the assassination. This is the whole thing that is so scary and freaky, that the people that carried out this power structure behind the assassination was also the people that had their own investigation on standby. So that as soon as the shots were fired, boom, in went their own investigation. And their only task is to stop the truth, to be like a brick of wall, to just say, point, they went that way, they went that way, they went that way, and then deal with people like myself that comes too close to the truth. I have two friends that was murdered, that we were doing our best together to find the truth. I was threatened as well. I had to leave my home country, and I now live abroad. I had to start a whole new life. So they will never, ever officially come forward with the truth. That is for sure.
Tell us about that. I mean, what sort of intimidation was there against you? I mean, because let's put this all in context, because Sweden is supposed to be a neutral country, and certainly there seems to be some evidence here that the NATO side possibly was responsible for murdering, assassinating the Prime Minister. Surely that would cause an enormous effect in Sweden itself.
I'm sorry, Tony. This it's very hard for me to hear you. But if I understand right, you're talking about Sweden being a neutral country and the big consequences. The thing is that Sweden has been like a neutral in a shadowy way, because they've been indirectly connected to NATO since the early 60s, I would say, almost, or maybe even further back. Behind the curtains of power, they have been very, very loyal to NATO. And so Olof Palme himself was part of building up the Stay Behind movement, the Gladio network in Sweden, together with William Colby, who later became the director of the CIA. So Olof Palme himself was very much involved in these things as a young man, and also while he was prime minister, and so they had regular meetings with Stay Behind and so on. And actually, he was shot dead right outside the so-called Skandia building, the insurance company Skandia. But that is the exact same building where the Stay Behind had their meetings, and where he was many times part of these meetings as well. So that building is very central in the assassination as well.
Well, it's interesting that the Bilderbergs, that have really been part of Sweden, has been part of that for many years, and that's very closely connected with NATO and the military-industrial complex and the West's arms lobby, and yet Sweden still pretends to be NATO. Is Sweden in denial? Not
denial, disguise. This is the people in power are very aware of this, and NATO have been having exercises in Sweden for years, and so on. And now they're going more and more open about, we're going to join NATO, and so on. They've been part of it for a long, long time.
We've also heard,
so it's an absolute it's a charade.
Well, we've had, haven't we, news before Christmas, and I think it was just after Christmas too, with the Swedish government making a big fuss about Russian submarines up to the north of the country. What do you make of that?
I don't know about that specific thing. I've been living in Spain for many years since I had to leave the country, so I haven't been following everything there.
Okay. What about the Wallenberg family in Sweden? Because I know they're quite an interesting lot. In that, for example, during the Second World War, one of the brothers was supporting the Nazis, while the other brother was supporting the British and the Allies during the war, and they've played a big part in the Bilderberg conferences ever since.
True. And the Wallenberg family is very central in many, many dark things as well. And I would humbly suggest that Peter Wallenberg was the contact between Sweden and South Africa when it came to giving the order who should carry out the assassination, that he was the link there. So also, the Wallenberg, they have the family motto is rule without being visible, and this is exactly what they are. They're in the shadows. You don't see them.
Fascinating. Also, I know that you've written some things on the attack in Denmark, in Copenhagen, a couple of months ago, on the Danish cartoonist. So what do you make of that? There's actually quite a lot going on up in Scandinavia, isn't there? That was happened just a couple of weeks after the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris.
Yeah, they're very much connected. These two, in the old days, false flag operation was something not very common. It happened, and I think many, many wars in modern times have been started on false flag operations. A false flag operation is an old naval term where in the old days, if you wanted to invade a country and you didn't want to turn out like a bully and have problems with your neighboring country, what you did was you put the enemy's flag on one of your own ships, let that ship attack you, and then you were suddenly the victim, and then it was justified that you could go and invade that country and plunder and rape and whatever. So that's where the term false flag operation comes from. But I would say that I specialized in false flag operations, and I spent so many years looking into it. I would say the last 5-6 years, the amount of false flag operations have just accelerated like mad, absolutely crazy, the numbers of them. And the Charlie Hebdo, a 100% false flag operation, and very much connected to the Danish one as well. And I was actually able to publicly predict the Danish one with exactly 1 month before it happened. I went out in media warning about that, and then boom, it happened exactly a month later. And then after that, I went straight to Sweden at the day of the anniversary of when Olof Palme was shot on the 28th of February. I did a 7-hour walk around the site. I had a big group of people with me. It was filmed. It went out in media and so on. And normally when I do these things, that stirs the whole thing up. And then we have these articles coming up, in the newspapers, taking up these old things and pushing them out there as if it was some new evidence or something like that. It's absolute baloney. These are old things. And I just want to say I mailed so many newspapers and TV stations and so on in Denmark and Sweden. I emailed about 1,100 of these media contacts before I was invited as one of the key speakers outside the Bilderberg meeting 2014. And before that, I emailed all of these people saying, I'm coming here now. I have this book. It's almost 1,100 pages. So much of the real truth is there. It's 30 years of my life. I will give it to you for free. Anything I can do to assist the truth to come out, please contact me. You don't have to stumble around looking for all of these things because it's all in there in the book. And how many did get back to me? 2 out of 1,100. 2 got back to me. So there is, when you look at these conspiracies, there's the big ones is more or less always followed by a secondary conspiracy, a conspiracy of silence. There's this absolute silence that comes. Either it's the official version or silence. That's it. And I just want to mention one time,
yeah.
I used to do music for TV4 in Sweden. It's one of the major channels in Sweden. And in 1996, there was a German filmmaker that made an incredible documentary about the Olof Palme assassination, naming names, pointing out some of the Swedish police officers that was involved and so on. Absolutely incredible documentary. You can find it on YouTube nowadays. It's called Murder in Stockholm. And it won the prize for best documentary in Germany and Italy that year. So when I saw that the first time, I thought, oh my God, how strange that we haven't seen it in Sweden. So I went to the department. We have it's called a program called Cold Facts. It's like a documentary program that reveals all the truth. At least that's what they say. So I went to them since I was working in the same offices. So I went up to them. I said, listen here, here's a video. It's an incredible documentary about the assassination of Olof Palme. Please have a look and see if there's anything you can use. And they said, so the guy that I spoke to, he said, so is it about Christer Pettersson, the guy that has been accused of it, the patsy? I said, absolutely not. It's about the conspiracy involving Swedish police and foreign agents and so on. And then this guy, this is national TV, the investigative program #1 in Sweden at that time. He said, well, if it's not about the Christer Pettersson trail connection, we don't want to see it. We've decided to stick to that one, and that's company policy. And I said, but how on earth can you as a journalist, why don't you just take the tape, watch it? If it's crap, throw it out. If it's good, show it. No, we're not interested. And that for me was very, very, shocking experience. Being a journalist myself, to have somebody like that on such a top level within journalism and then just totally refuse even to look at it. I thought that was absolutely a scandal, really.
Well, it is. I mean, it sounds to me like he's more of a gatekeeper than he is a producer or a journalist.
But that's exactly it. Gatekeeper is the word. We've got there's some very specific people in Sweden that are sort of like the gatekeepers of the power structure. There's a very famous author and journalist in Sweden. His name is Jan Guillou. He's like an icon in Sweden, and he used to be the the head of the Swedish Journalist Association and so on. And he is officially the guy that stands for the truth, that really he will find the real truth. But every time there is some major thing, like the assassination of Olof Palme, the blowing up of MS Estonia that killed almost 1,000 people, or some really big scandals that are threatening the top of the pyramid in Sweden, he is the gatekeeper. He gets out there in media while there are court cases going on. He totally dismisses witnesses and he ridicules everyone who's trying to find the truth, and it's like totally the opposite of what you would suspect from or expect from a person like that.
Okay, Ole, finally, you were at the Bilderberg conference, which we were covering here last year, doing talks and that sort of thing. What's your take on this organisation? Because certainly when it comes to elections, it seems that these people are far higher up the food chain than the poor old politicians that we elect in our general election here in Britain in the next couple of weeks.
God, yeah. I mean, we're talking, in my opinion, after 30 years, the Bilderberg Group is part of a shadow world government. It consists of people that you see on TV every day, nice suits, nice cars. They say exactly what you want to hear, but you are not aware of how they're connected behind the scenes. And the Bilderberg Group is one way to find out how they're connected. In my book, the last 200 pages of these 1,100 pages are the membership list of the Bilderberg Group from 1954 when it was created all the way to 2014. And it's when you see these connections, that's how you see, oh my God, that's how it is all connected. This is one part of it. So I think it's extremely important to expose who is in the Bilderberg Group, the agenda, where they meet, and so on.
Do you want to just give us your website and tell us how people can find out more about your work, Ole?
My website is lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com, because that is exactly what I do. I really try to expose with light, the really dark corners, get the light in there, and so we can transform this world into this beautiful place it's supposed to be, instead of having this very secretive global elite bully type of group that are just harassing and destroying so much in the world, where most people don't even understand that so many of these events are actually connected with the same people behind it. So, like I said, my website is lightonconspiracies.com. One of my books is Coup d'etat in Slowmotion, and it's about the assassination of the Swedish Prime Minister, but also with all the connections into other assassinations like the JFK, the Iran-Contra scandal, the Freemasonry network, the pedophile network. There's so much of it connected. So, also I got newsletters, membership area, anything like that. I'm totally self-going. I'm not employed by anyone. I'm trying to do everything I can to expose what is going on, and that's about it.
Okay, Ole Dammegård, more power to your elbow, sir, and nice to hear from you, and good luck with your book, and do stay in touch with our show here. You can hear, I'll put links on our show page to Ole's work. That's Ole Dammegård, the author of Coup d'etat in Slowmotion.
Being bigger by being better. The number one choice for Bristol. This is BCFM 93.2.
Now, Old Lay Broxford economist Martin Summers, can you just put into context some of the stuff we've just heard there about Sweden? Because, as we were hearing from Ole, and many people suspect, Sweden isn't really neutral at all, is it? It's part of the NATO bloc. So what's going on?
Yeah, it's part of the NATO bloc, but historically Sweden was one of the first countries in the world to create a welfare state in the 1930s, and they had the Scandinavian socialism was talked of as the Swedish model, and therefore, in a way, the undermining of that model, the assassination of Olof Palme, is a part of the process of gradually undermining this very successful political movement in Sweden. And of course, what's happened over the years is that, as time has gone on, the traditional way of running things in Sweden, with a very sort of egalitarian economic policy, has been gutted, effectively, and the assassination of Palme, I would see, as part of that process.
Yeah, I mean, also, Sweden wasn't really, it seems, allowed to be a neutral country. In a similar way, Ukraine has not been allowed to stay neutral.